Why did the government of Kenya overreact over a small school play? A play supposed to be performed in the National Drama Festival. Why? And of course now everybody can see it's a big mess up, because the government has single-handedly given this small play such serious promotion. It is known well beyond the borders of Kenya. Everybody wants to watch it. Everybody wants to take in this play. And yet, had they held their peace, done nothing, they would have been in a much better position than they are now. That should be clear. Regulars on this channel will know that it is not my habit to rush to record a video just because something major has happened, and to end up leaving my audience more confused than ever. No. What I strive to do is to bring clarity into analysis. And therefore, if I don't have that clarity, I will not make that video. Pure and simple. By the way, that is an excuse for holding off doing this video for such a long time. Many of you have sent me emails asking me, Chris, what's happening? What is your view on this? That is my excuse. Although genuine excuse. So, stay with me for that very surprising piece of information, which most people have missed. The crux of this problem. What triggered it? That is important for us to understand. But let us start with what suppressing free speech does. Oh boy. Why don't people learn? Why don't people learn from history? Why don't people learn from common sense? When you suppress free speech, there are consequences every time without fail. Whether you like it or not, whether you're good at suppressing the free speech, whether you're so effective at suppressing that free speech that virtually people cannot speak freely in your country, it never works. Maybe the best example of this is the previous Soviet Union. Russia. They suppressed free speech so much that people got used to not having free speech. Actually, apparently, they never got used to it. This goes against human nature. We have to be clear on that. And so in the end, the mighty Soviet Union fell. Okay? And there are many other examples. The colonial government in India would have survived for another 100 years or even more had they not decided to go after free speech. They even passed an act of parliament controlling what newspapers would report, completely suppressing the free expression of the people. And in that way, they hastened the independence of the country called India. Even the famed French Revolution, very brutal, very violent, was triggered by suppression of free speech. I'm telling you, this thing is so deadly. People should learn earlier. To avoid problems. Very serious problems. That is where that famous quote came. Oh, they don't have bread. Why don't they eat cake? Oh, Kenyans can't put food on the table. See, they just go down there for pizza or something. There's so many takeouts. What? The family did not eat last night. How now? There's so many nyamachoma joints. See, the man just takes his family there for a nyamachoma session. Problem solved. What? Well, before we come to that thing that really triggered it, there is something else much more obvious. yeah, that definitely contributed to this drama. And it can be summarized in one single word. Timing. Timing. Okay? Now as you try and figure out for yourself what I mean by timing, yeah, let's go back to Diani briefly. Please allow me to acknowledge our sponsors for today's show, which is a quarter-acre Diani, second row from Neptune Hotel. Now I think we're all aware the South Coast, yeah, that's Diani, has opened up tremendously since the completion, yeah, of the Dongo Kundu project. You see, this project created a freeway into the South Coast. All these years it has been a nightmare getting into the South Coast, yeah, because the only way you do that is via the ferry. You would have to cross on the ferry, and sometimes there are too many people wanting to cross, oil tankards, exports to Tanzania, etc., etc. But now the South Coast has opened up in a way it has never opened up before in the history of the country. And there are many massive developments going on there. And therefore this is a hot cake. Diani is the largest by far town in Kwale. If you want to get anything done in Kwale, you rush to Diani. And therefore there are many uses, yeah, you can apply to this plot if and when you get it. And don't forget, it is the second row from the beach. Perfect. Opens up many opportunities. Now you can see the numbers to call on your screens right now. Just get in touch with Mary on 0716 509 465 or 0721 575 852. Talk to her and see if you can make your dream come true. By the way, the asking price for this whole quarter acre is only 5.5 million. Okay? Tuendelee. This issue of timing is something very easy for us to identify with. All of us. I'm sure we've all experienced it. When I was in school, I had a very strict father. At least I knew when to ask for very big, expensive things and get them. It was actually very simple. I would wait until my dad was in a very good mood, beaming, very happy. And usually, not all the time, but usually it was when he was reviewing my report card from my performance in school. You see, he always did this in the presence of the suspect. You know, he was a cop. And he never stopped being a cop. So the suspect, the owner of that report card that he had just received, had to be present. And so of course the first subject he'd look at was mathematics, which was always a challenge. Ah, I see you're improving in your maths. But I want you to change this B into an A. Okay? And then of course the other subjects, he would say nothing. He would just smile in satisfaction. Kwa sababu nilikuwa nimefagia. And that is the moment I would pounce. A time and a chance. And I would say, nimeona tracksuit nyingine ambaye nahitaji kufanya practice yangu ya mpira. How much is it? He would ask in his loud voice. And then I would respond, I think it is a bit expensive. Nimeona bei iko juu kidogo. He would interrupt me. No problem. I will get it for you by tomorrow. Game short. Timing. And I believe we have said this more than enough times on this channel, that in politics, timing is everything. Now unfortunately, this Butere Girls play was a victim of timing. Where is the country right now? What is happening in the country? We have reached a place, just to summarize it, we have reached a place where we have a paranoid government. These guys are acting very brave. Some of them are still arrogant, although I'm sure you've noticed by now the arrogance has reduced. But the truth is, behind closed doors, these people are shaking in their boots. Huh? How are we going to stay in power? Huh? Hata Raila's ID? Oh gosh, what are we going to do? Huh? And then in that atmosphere, a call comes in. You know, there's a play by these Butere Girls, and it is political. And the person who wrote the script is the former Secretary General of the UDA party. Former Secretary General of UDA himself, a man called Cleophas Malala. This information, this news, comes in that kind of environment. What reaction do you expect? What rubbish is that? Ban that play immediately. Oh sir, you know you cannot ban it. Just fix it. I have to do everything for you. Just go fix it. I don't want to see that play anywhere. I believe now we understand where timing comes into this whole business. And here is a hot tip for the governments that are coming. When you're running a government, there is something critically important nobody talks about. But it is so important. Without it, you will not make it. You will not succeed in your agenda, even if you're a genuine government. You will not make it. This thing is so important. The Jomo Kenyatta government had it. Oh yes, plenty of it. Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi had it. Okay? But Kibaki didn't. And he suffered the consequences. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta apparently had it because he had the huge advantage of using some of the wisdom in governance from those who are very close to his father when his father ruled Kenya. Yeah. And of course, top on that list is former First Lady Mama Ngina Kenyatta. And so President Uhuru had it. Yeah. And it saved him a lot of grief. Enabled him to survive. Very important, this thing. What is it? It is the ability of looking at every decision you make with giraffe view. I'm trying to simplify it. What does that mean? Okay, it means that as a leader, you understand that every small decision you make will have immediate consequences. But then more important, could also have many consequences later. In short, you think beyond your nose. You think through your decisions. In other words, your decisions are like moves on a chessboard where you're thinking ahead. You know, the second president of Kenya, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, used to do something very interesting that for many years puzzled me. He would drop somebody from the cabinet, okay, and of course usually replace that person with somebody from the same area, same constituency, usually the main political rival of that person he has dropped. And then after a few weeks, he would do something very puzzling. The minister who has been dropped would be given a parastatal appointment. He would be appointed to a post somewhere. What is Moi thinking? I will tell you what he was thinking and what he usually did in so many cases. Now this cabinet minister who has been dropped is given another appointment in order to keep them relevant and powerful, so as to keep this new appointee who has just been appointed to the cabinet on their toes. Divide and rule. Make sure they remain rivals. And as long as they remain rivals, they will never even one day unite in that particular area of Kenya against Moi. That will be impossible. Because usually, these were the two kingpins from that area of the country. And then a year or so later, yeah, very predictably, the minister who was dropped would be reappointed, and the one who had been appointed would be dropped. So it becomes a game of musical chairs. Meanwhile, Moi remains firmly in control. Also, Moi would take his sweet time before making an appointment. Okay? And I'm guessing he discussed this at length. He looked at all the angles, and very important, he looked at possible scenarios in the future. When Ruto decided to appoint Rigathi Gachagua, his running mate, for the 2022 presidential elections, now with the benefit of hindsight, he neglected to ask himself some very important questions. The character of Rigathi Gachagua. Why had Rigathi Gachagua fallen out with Uhuru Kenyatta? He was a personal assistant for Uhuru Kenyatta for a very long time. Why did they fall out? He didn't ask himself that question. And even more important, would his personality clash with Ruto's personality? That is a simple but very critical question. Because when people work together, there has to be some kind of chemistry. And if that is not there, there has to be total submission. Yeah? And Kithure Kindiki, who was the leading candidate to be Ruto's running mate, would obviously have been a better pick. Now see what has happened. Yeah, let me just stop there. But I think now we get it very clearly that at a certain level, even on the lower levels, every decision you make has short-term consequences, mid-term consequences, and many ugly long-term consequences. You have to look at all of them. Even when choosing a life partner. Oh, this is so important. And I believe the problem is that the man gets so excited that his brains fly out of the bedroom window into oblivion. And then later, he suffers dire consequences. Folks, what we have here is a government that makes rash decisions. Yeah, they don't think their decisions through. Because this Butere Girls play, Echoes of War, is a monster against the Ruto regime that the Ruto regime themselves created. Yeah, they nurtured it, they fed it aggressively, made sure it grows nicely, made sure it grows very powerful to fight them. That is exactly what happened. Because had they just kept quiet, ignored the play, what would have happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Even if they were saying in the play, Kasongo must go, nothing would have happened. Absolutely nothing. But then now, they've courted a crisis, a very huge crisis for themselves, while at the same time highlighting the way they're clamping down on free speech. Yeah, they themselves have drawn the attention of the entire world to themselves as a government that is actively fighting, actively seeking to suppress free speech in a country that calls itself a democracy. Now, as promised, this is exactly what happened that led to this mess. When this play was performed at the lower levels, county, regional, etc., etc., the condition that was placed on Butere Girls for them to proceed to the next level was to remove some certain sensitive parts in the play. And therefore, the big beef, what made the government get really upset, was that Butere Girls, for whatever reason, refused to go with the redacted script, the script which had those sensitive parts removed. And therefore, the Minister of Education which was closely following up, they just went crazy and said, no, how dare they? Okay? And that is how we ended up in the current crisis, which is sad. But the truth is, why would anybody want to interfere with the script of a school play? Why? With what motive? In a country that has a constitution that guarantees free speech, why would you want to do that in the first place? Well, now, the Ruto regime has to suffer the consequences. Okay? They have to suffer the consequences, which I'm afraid are going to be heavy. Because this particular play has done a few things that are not in the interests of the Ruto regime surviving. Number one, it has given many activists an idea. Just do plays to communicate what you want to say. Okay? And some of these consequences are already unfolding. Going on the stage refusing to perform and singing the national anthem. Hiyo ni incitement bwana. And there are other consequences that will follow. Butere Girls are rallying Kenyans behind them. Butere Girls and this play has brought Kenyans together in one forum, in one voice, in one topic, against the regime of William Samoei Ruto. And that is the worst news ever for a regime that wants to remain in power. That is the truth. And you can never run away from the truth. This is bad. For them, that is very bad. And to make matters worse, the First Lady, Rachel Ruto, she went to this school once upon a time. She's a former Butere Girls student. I just hope for the sake of the Ruto regime, she does not take this thing emotionally. Because that will just make matters worse. A lot worse. In my stack of the most sensitive, classified info videos of Kumekucha, which are now available, you can see all the details on your screens. For only Kenya shillings 2,999, you can get all this red hot, moto kuliko pasi ya makaa information. And it's a lot of information. Ogola assassination, oh yes it was. Very deep inside the Ruto administration, what really happens. Yeah, you'll get shocked. It's interesting that Gachagwa's recent revelations confirmed a lot of this information. The very high-tech assassination of former Tanzanian President John Pombe Magufuli, etc., etc., even something on the coup, and a lot of other information, yeah, even on Raila Odinga, the latest that has been happening, some of the things that happened a few months ago that are now showing signs of coming out into the open, etc., etc. Take advantage of this offer and go for this stack of highly classified, sensitive videos of mine. Yeah. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.